Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Street Legal. We are here every Thursday, 6 p.m. on 103.9 LI News Radio. This is Bob Macedonio, your host. My firm name, Macedonio and Duncan, located 126 Carlton Avenue, Islip Terrace, 631-582-3232. And I'm here with my co-host, Link.
What's going on, everybody? We got an interesting show as always. Welcome to Street Legal live podcast, starring Bob Macedonio and Link. And I'm ready to get into it, but you might.
We're gonna tackle the issues that don't get tackled too often, and try to bring up some topics that people kind of run away from. We're gonna go back. We talked about the crime, the minority communities, and we're a street legal where the law and the streets collide. We're gonna go back to like the 80s and get into a little crack epidemic and how it really affected and devastated the minority communities, and what needs to be done and what can be done and what wasn't done.
Right. Even more so, we're going to get into like, how did it get into our communities, right? Because we're going to stop pretending like somebody in Amityville whipped up a pot of crack and just knew what it was and that messed us up. We're going to get into where it came from too.
Cocaine came into this country probably in the in the early 60s. It really became
my boy Pablo.
Popular and was more of like a novelty drug, which is used in a lot of clubs and a lot of entertainers. It was expensive.
Right.
And then what you had is back, I guess, in the early 80s, it came in through South America and some of into the Miami ports where the immigrants taught the locals how to make crack cocaine. That's not what happened. Well,
I mean, I'm gonna let you tell your story, but I don't want to cut you off. I want to hear you.
How did we just come to cooking up cocaine and making it to crack cocaine? Tell me how it happened.
I'd rather hear what you got to say first. I want to hear what the people was being fed. So if you don't mind telling me your version of what happened first, so I could even hear
my version how it happened is I believe crack cocaine first came into Miami, which was the southern port of our United States, down the southern part of Florida, which is very close to the Caribbean and South America, which is it's always been a drug port since the time the cocaine's been coming in here.
Right.
And the immigrants taught the young locals on how to convert powder cocaine into crack. And what that is, it's a cheaper form of the cocaine, which then made it more prevalent and more available to lower income minorities, and that's what set that off in the whole epidemic.
Okay.
That's my impression, or that's my understanding of how it really came into the United States.
Right. It did definitely come in through the port of Miami. At this time, remember Miami Vice, a lot of popular shows were out basically showcasing what was going on with Miami.
Sensationalizing the drug trade.
Exactly. And showing the different task forces that was being built because of it, right? So, you right up until the part where you say the immigrants showed the people how to make crack, because the immigrants didn't know how to make crack. The first people to have crack was the people in the minority communities, which was the black neighborhoods. It was first introduced from Miami. The cocaine came from Miami, went to LA. And their crack was manufactured first.
So where did the idea come to, get baking soda, get a little water, and cook cocaine to make a rock form? Where did that idea come from? Who thought of this?
What we're not going to do is we're not going to make.
We're not going to give a science lesson.
I'm about to give you a science lesson. We're not going to say black people did it with the cocaine. 'Cause I'm going to tell you one thing: black people never had enough cocaine to do is get it wet. We never had enough cocaine to say, you know what, it's okay to get this amount wet, right? So, we wasn't playing with wet cocaine over a stove, mixing baking soda with it, because we don't have enough of it in enough amounts to be like, this is what we about to do to create that. So if we wet the cocaine, believe somebody already showed us a way to do this and be able to bring this back to as what they said it was going to be.
On 10 times the value.
Right. So what happened was my full understanding, which you could do a lot of research on, it's online, it's in movies. In fact, they got a show called, what's the show with Franklin? Kid's name is Franklin, but they showing how the CIA used him to flood the streets of LA, Los Angeles with crack cocaine, and they had no idea what was going on. So now, like what you just said, it was cocaine being a novelty drug, something to party with, right? And people thinking like that's what it is, not dangerous.
You look back at the old Studio 54, the early days of like the rock era,
right?
It was a popular drug that was used, among the elite, the whites,
as a party. It was like,
as a party drug.
In fact, people came up to each other and was like, "Yo, do you party?" That right there meant, "Do you use coke?" So, but now imagine,
it was almost. Yeah. It wasn't legal, but it was almost accepted.
It was accepted, and like even higher societies accepted. Correct. It was not like a lower dirtbag kind of drug use kind of a thing. It was looked at as
crack made it a dirtbag drug.
That made it a dirtbag drug. So what happened was, being that they had flooded these lower income places with this crack cocaine.
Well, you say,
we didn't know what it was.
When you say they, who is they flooded?
The Central Intelligence Agency.
So you're saying the United States government, the CIA,
absolutely
flooded the minority communities with crack cocaine?
Absolutely, 100%.
Why?
Well, because it throws you off your game. The same reason we send spies to go destabilize other nations' governments.
I have a very, very difficult time believing that.
Right.
I do.
No. And the Tuskegee experiments was like, I guess you have a hard time believing that too, when they just injected the black men with syphilis and just to see what the effects of syphilis would be over a long-term time. But you have a hard time believing that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that actually happened. They have movies on it. And they also have like government documents that have been unclassified to show you that the Tuskegee experiments. But let me ask you a question.
If you think that the United States government has this conspiracy against the blacks, we go back to our other show. Why keep voting the same way you guys are voting?
Well, because it's the government. No matter whether you make up Democrats or Republicans, you're still making up the government. Right. And the government has it out for black people. We're not talking about like a certain political party. We're no longer talking about Democrat, Republican when we're talking this. We're talking about the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, being led by J. Edgar Hoover, who made it his business to make sure black people would never come into power. That was like, they also have a movie on that played by Leonardo DiCaprio, where he says it out of his own mouth. I would never let these monkeys come into power. These are some
far-fetched conspiracy theories. I do not believe that this United States government has a conspiracy to keep the black minority community down. I do not.
All right, so
we have done so much and spent billions and billions of dollars to reverse those effects from slavery and all the racism that's gone on in the history, voting rights. So why would there be an undermining effort to counteract what we're spending billions of dollars to improve?
No matter what whatever steps you take as a black community to advance yourself, there's always going to be something against it. So then you'd be like, how could you be against black advancement? But there is.
But you could take your theory and apply it, whether you like Donald Trump or don't like Donald Trump, apply it to what they're doing to Trump now. They don't want an outsider getting in.
Right.
Trump is an outsider.
So if that's the case,
black
and that's the
community
point
was
you're
outsiders
making, and I agree. So then if we're going to be referred to as Trump as the outsiders, and regardless what reason they're not letting us in, let's acknowledge the fact they're not letting us in, right? Let's acknowledge the fact that they are trying to destabilize anything that we might do to put us in a prominent position because they want us dependent on the same government that hates us. Right, the same people that handcuff, mace us, stomp us, put their feet on our neck till we can't breathe, like to cause a worldwide uproar. They want us to depend on them after we know that they hate us, after we know they've experimented on us, after we know that they've done put us in the projects as an actual project, as a study to be able to the things I know. Right, make it almost impossible to go back and forth with opinion.
No, because we've had 50 plus years of civil rights movements from Dr. Martin Luther King, a wonderful individual. Why hasn't some of these issues been addressed? Why hasn't there been more advancement? Why are we still stuck in the same places?
Because your government moved the way it's supposed to move. Like as a force, it's strong. Like let's admit, like the U.S. government
come with excuses and not solutions.
All right. Unless believe me, I got solutions. I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay, listen, we're gonna get into the solutions as soon as we get into more of what's being inflicted upon us because we gotta state it, right? We gotta say this is what's going on, right? Now,
crack devastated the minority communities. Fact. Right. How it got there?
A big question mark, right?
A big question mark. I'm not going to believe it was infiltrated by the U.S. government.
That's a coincidence. There's a question mark there. That's crazy.
I am of the belief that it was
because the government's not going to say the government was here, right? Alongside of crack introduced, the government did this. They're not gonna put that John Hancock on that because that's the reason the CIA did it. Because anything the CIA do is more secret than what the FBI does. This is central intelligence.
You take that same conspiracy theory and you apply it towards marijuana because we've had other discussions where the minority community believes the marijuana laws were put in place to keep the minorities down also because they were more apt to
How weren't they?
So, but you think that these laws were just formed to just keep the minority community oppressed?
Bro, why they call marijuana? Because it sounds Spanish. It sounds like something you wasn't supposed to have. You knew that. You knew the answer to that. Yeah, they call it marijuana.
Why is it called cocaine?
Because it sounds good no matter what ears it full on. Cocaine always sounds like a good idea no matter what ears hear it. So, but when you say crack, that sounds broken. The word crack sounds broken.
I remember growing, being in New York City in my college years and seeing the big signs up in, Upper East Side of Manhattan, up in Harlem, crack is whack, and people were just dying.
That's a fact.
This is Street Legal. We are here every Thursday night on 103.9 LI News Radio. We're about to take a short break. I'm Bob Macedonio. My firm name, Macedonio and Duncan. Again, we're here every Thursday night. My phone number
631-582-3232. And if you want to stay free,
you got to call B.O.B.
Call B.O.B.
We're back in a few short minutes. Let's go. We are back. This is Street Legal. We are here every Thursday night, 6 p.m., 103.9 LI News Radio. I'm Bob Mastonio. My firm name, Mastonio & Duncan, 126 Carlton Avenue, Islip Terrace, 631-582-3232. And I'm here with Link. And we're going to pick up our discussion, Link. And, you know, we could agree that crack made its, I guess, introduction into the major metropolitan areas in this country probably in the late 70s, early 80s, correct?
Yeah, I don't like the way you put it. Like you made it sound like everybody had a chance to get their hands on it. It was put into the black communities inside the metropolitan areas. Let's do that. Let's just keep it 100.
You go with your theory, and I'm gonna hit you.
Crack was crack an issue in your community in the 80s? I'm sorry.
No, it was not.
Okay, it was definitely
powder cocaine was though.
Right.
Powder cocaine was
because, and this is where it get interesting. We thought that powder cocaine that was coming in and crack was the same thing because we didn't understand the devastating effects of it yet, right? So people going out on Saturdays and Fridays, like same thing they've been doing. Instead of doing a couple lines, they hitting the crack, right? But don't know.
Yeah, but how much of the minority population was going out on Friday night, Saturday night that had the money to do the lines of cocaine? They didn't.
Yeah, everybody was doing that first. Everybody in my community was doing coke. I swear to God. Everybody that I knew that was partying, that wasn't doing weed, was either doing coke or doing what's the when you smoke it, LSD, PCP. They was doing it was either PCP, it was cocaine, or it was weed. Where was the money
coming from to get the cocaine from?
People was working.
It was more like an upper class drug.
Right, but people was working at this time. Before crack devastated the community, we had our leaders actually leading. We had our parents actually parenting us. We had like homeowners. We had all these different things that was going on. We lost all of those things after the crack epidemic hit, and we saw the results and the effects of it.
See, the way I look at it is because of the low price of crack and the affordability of it, that made it more.
Oh, that definitely played a crazy
available.
Yeah, that played a part
to more of the minority community, and it was the rapid effects it had on you.
Okay, you know what a weekend warrior is?
Yeah, party all weekend. Monday morning, go to work.
Go to work. Yeah. All right. So blacks in our community could not afford cocaine all week long. I'm not saying that, right? But they was able to be weekend warriors because you get paid on Friday, right? So you can go get yourself an 8-ball and party out from Friday until Sunday night.
Who was selling that 8-ball? The black guy, or was white guys coming to the neighborhood?
That definitely was a black guy.
Okay, so here's my thing. That same black drug dealer then get introduced to how to manufacture crack.
Thanks to the CIA. Let's not leave that out.
We disagree on that. Now he realizes my profits are going to be 100 times greater.
Right.
And more people are going to get addicted to this. And I'm going to make 10 times more. So I don't blame the CIA or white people introducing, because that same black drug dealer that's selling to your weekend warriors, as you put it, is now going to make crack and sell to everybody and make 10 times the money. Okay.
There's a show called Snowfall. Everybody get into this show.
And I think it's all economic driven and just all.
No, I'm not going to be over talked on this one, because there's a show called Snowfall, right? And what it depicts is the journey of a young man named Franklin, who's actually playing the part of Freeway Ricky Ross, who the CIA used to introduce crack cocaine into the black community. And they made it seem harmless because we were thinking like this harmless thing was going to be the same as cocaine, doing a few lines. However, no one said or told anybody about the addictive purpose of this new drug that came out, and that only adding baking soda to it would undergo a chemical change that no longer made it just cocaine as a substance. Now it was something that had evolutionized from cocaine to something that was 100% chemically changed. And in that change, there was an addictive purpose to be found in it that was stronger than any addiction anyone had ever seen. Right. So we're talking about something that...
And the high was higher.
Yeah, it was instant.
Shorter lived, but higher.
Right.
And you wanted yourself...
Bang, zoom, straight to the moon. Just like that. Right. And 15 minutes later, as you started to crash down, you wanted to continue it. So even though you were still high, you wasn't high like the blast that you took that made you want to get back to that again. So now it was not only just super addictive, it was... people became almost thoughtless as to how they would go about obtaining it. They would do anything.
Like, that's where you get into the high rate of crime.
Right.
Burglaries, robberies,
everything, murder even, right? Like anything.
Murders increased.
Yeah, you got people who like I know people who wanted to kill fiends because fiends, remember fiends used to like pack watch on the block. You put your pack down, you go, take enough out to go serve who you serving, and next thing you know, one of these fiends done seen you, and now you know because the fiend kept hanging around your spot, and now your stuff is gone. You want to kill him because that's like, you know what I mean?
That's why you had the increase of pawn shops too. People would steal whatever they could.
Everything,
take it in and get the
gold. When people buy gold, all of that went up. Everything went up because they know people was going to steal it. They know people were going to steal that from people. So this thing that we didn't think was dangerous ended up being so devastating, and because there was no precursor to it, we had no idea like this could happen. So there was nothing set in place as a plan. So all our elders, our leaders, our community pillars, they all fell down. Anybody who played with this thing became a slave to it instantly.
But do you have to? Can you take some responsibility, because you have to voluntarily do the drug? It wasn't like anybody came in and force fed it to you.
No, not at all.
There has to be some sense of self-responsibility. You can't just keep blaming the government.
Well, it's like this too. You could say that same thing when it comes to guns. If we stop manufacturing guns and we make possession of guns and we take the guns back, will people still die so much from guns? It's because of we allow it to be manufactured here. United States has the most death by guns here. So if we don't bring the cocaine into the city, you can't grow crack in Harlem. You can't grow cocaine in Harlem. You can't grow cocaine in any urban place where black people inhabit. So in order for us to have that, our government is failing us.
Our government is failing. Look at the people coming across the border. As we speak now, thousands are walking across this border with who knows what.
Right. It could have anything on them. Kilos, anything on them, right?
Kilos, fentanyl.
Right. So if our government is going to try to make money as fake drug dealers, right, who don't want to be known that they're drug dealers, because our government definitely sold more drugs than I'll ever see in my life. I won't see warehouses worth of drugs or metric tons of cocaine like the way they seen it, right? And I won't move it the way that they moved it. Because if we go back to Oliver North and the whole Iran-Contra affair, like let's get into it. We know like our government was drug dealers. Oliver North took the hit. My God, shout out to Oliver North. I respect the fact you took the hit for the team. El Chapo, aka Oliver North, aka El Chapo. I'm gonna give it to him. But that made its way directly into our neighborhoods. You know what I mean? And it devastated us beyond anything we could have seen coming, man.
But the crime rate blew up during the crack epidemic, which then put the policing in those minority communities.
We were able to hire more. Think about all these things that did not work for our community, but worked for the rest of the world. We were able to hire more police to be able to police all these people that were now becoming like pretty much zombies.
The war on drugs was a huge financial
It gave a pass to just completely violating our constitutional rights. Like when Giuliani introduced stop and frisk in New York, right? Like
that was way after.
It was way after. But let's not pretend it wasn't during. If we had our heads like out of the clouds instead of like our leaders being crackheads and all that, we would have fought that. We would have never allowed stop and frisk to be something you could just take any black man and put him on the wall and check him out. We would have never allowed that. We didn't have anything to combat that because our people who would have been in power fell victim in the 80s. So by the time we get to the 90s, to the Giuliani part, who do we have to combat that? Al Sharpton? This weird guy who shows up for
self-serving, just out for his own financial interest.
I wouldn't even take a picture with this guy if I seen him.
No, but you see him take a picture with Trump for his benefit. You know?
I would take a picture with Trump on my back. That's my guy, bro.
The crime rose so much during the crack epidemic that you take L.A., which was a violent crime was reported every 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Every 8 minutes in LA. And also with the crack epidemic.
What year was that you're doing that?
This is the early 80s. It's going like 1980.
And this is why there's no New York stats on that, because in the
early 80s went through that. But
all LA.
You also have what the crack epidemic did throughout the country. It really was not the formation, but the expansion of the Bloods and the Crips, because now this was so profitable in the minority communities that you had to get control. And that's when the gangs really became, more prevalent, more in control, turf wars, because the money that was being made was so great. Back in the early 80s.
It was a great divisive tactic. I won't say because I know where Crips and Bloods was born from. I could tell you the year, the people who started it.
They really blew up during this crack epidemic because there was financially was so much money to be made. You're making an average of back in the early 80s, $500 a day for a kid. Kid in the corner making $500 a day, a teenager, 13, 14 years old.
It's tough to convince me that because I'm actually a Crip, right? So I have to know my history, and knowing my history, I know like the crack epidemic did perform a divisive faction. It did do that, but we're gonna get back to it, man. Go ahead, man. Let's take us out for a sec.
We are Street Legal. We are here every Thursday, 6 p.m., 103.9 LI News Radio. This is Bob Macedonio. My firm name, Macedonio and Duncan, 126 Carlton Avenue, Islip Terrace, 631-582-3232. And remember, you want to stay free.
Call B.O.B.
Got it. We'll be back in a few short minutes, but we're going to pick up, up this crack
I want this.
Okay. We are back. This is Bob Mastonio. We are here with Street Legal every Thursday, 6 p.m., 103.9 LI's News Radio. My firm name, Mastonio and Duncan, 126 Carlton Avenue, Islip Terrace, 631-582-3232. And I'm here with my co-host, Link. Like, we're gonna pick up where we went right before the commercial break.
Okay.
You know, you said you are a member of the Crips.
Right.
Okay, so you know the history of the gangs.
Right.
I'm not saying the gang was formed. Or
no,
the
I'm not saying that either. I'm saying the expansion of it wasn't that either. All right, Crips roll like this. This is how it goes.
The expansion, I think, came because the violence that was going on in the streets due to the crack epidemic, you had to have somehow some kind of protection had to be formed. That's
what they want you to think. It wasn't nothing. Because you know what? Once you could make gangs and drugs and guns and all that work together, then you can get this whole conspiracy thing going on, and you can really like federally screw a lot of people who don't even have the amount of organization that you're giving them the credit for. That's one. Two, Crips and Bloods both work by geographical location. So it was like if you grew up here, you was going to be this regardless to what, because there was no other alternative. If you can't go here and become a basketball player, like you said, that's one in like God knows how many hundred thousands, right? So that's not a realistic goal. So what mostly happens is because of your geographical location, you become a Crip if you on 60s block, if you on 30s block, if you on 80s block, if you 83rd, any of that, and you become a Blood if you live on Paru or if you live on any of these. But
I say the Crips were started where out in L.A. in
L.A.
Compton?
Yeah, right.
Okay, shout out to Snoop.
Shout out to Snoop. Shout out to L.A.
What happened is it spread. It spread to other cities, but it spread to other cities financial reasons, to go make money.
It spread to other cities for oppressive reasons. It's so easy to take advantage of me, right, as an inmate on Rikers Island. If it's a bunch of Spanish people and they've already practiced unity, but my people haven't come up with any kind of unity whatsoever, right? So in 1993, Lacey bought that whole Blood set to Rikers Island, because what Latin Kings was doing to blacks, they was just slicing them open. There was no unity. Blacks had no way to defend themselves. And so Lacey brought unity to it by unifying everybody under the Blood umbrella, right? And so Blood became a very formidable force to deal with if you're on Rikers Island. And because of that reason, Latin Kings had to leave us alone. They couldn't just attack a black person without you gotta have
being some price to pay.
You're gonna have to we're gonna probably get a bunch of your guys. You're saying that the crack
epidemic had nothing to do with the
it was protection. It was protection. It was for you so weak alone, and we were the only people who had nothing to unify us. After the Panther Party died, that was it.
How did these gangs financially handle themselves? Like they had to make money from something. They weren't going 9 to 5ers as you
we took advantage of the same things that the non-gang members took advantage of. The crack epidemic. We took advantage of the fact that we could run guns from down south to New York and sell them. We took advantage of the fact that we could sell girls, which was a renewable resource as far as we seen. We wasn't seeing them as women. We took advantage of almost everything you could do. We took cars to chop shops. You know, you represented a lot of things that people did in order to come up with that bread. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so absolutely. I think that to what you're saying, I think that it did drive crime between gang members, no matter what gang faction you were in, like, because this existed and now there was like financial gain put on the table now. I think that,
huge financial gain.
Right. And I think that gangs went crazy to own the biggest part of that table.
Correct.
So I think that.
Which then violence ensued. And you go back to New York City, we're all from this area, so we know more about it. The crack wars and the gang wars and the turf wars in New York City, there were police officers getting assassinated. People were getting murdered, right and left. It also was an increase in domestic violence. It set off
everything, because you're talking about people that's
New York City in the late 70s and the 80s was out of control.
Do you ever watch somebody take a hit of crack like before and after?
No.
All right. Well, being that I grew up with this like daily, listen, man, somebody could be completely normal like you, right?
Well, I'm not completely normal though.
All right. Well, they can get as normal as you could possibly be on your best days, right? They could get like that. Okay. And then the next moment, you don't recognize them, because as soon as they take that hit, their eyes change. Like their eyes become like so small, but the eye itself becomes big. The pupil goes so tiny, and you look at them and they look almost like they're not able to see you. They look crazy. Yeah. And so now, not only do they look crazy, they could get to a point where they just like all of a sudden just zone out and go dumb. Like get your hands out of my pockets, or get this off.
Paranoia sets in.
Everything. They can't stay out the window. They checking out. They think they hearing stuff. They're like, shh, yo, you hear that? And all of these things are happening as a result of them being high. So now try to imagine like these people who are older than me at this time. I'm in a crack house with all these people that's older than me, and this is how they behaving, right? So where's my hope for the future?
Well, because then you had a whole generation that was being born, the crack babies being born. It also led to a higher, increase in prostitution because women obviously were used as pawns or tools or some sort of a commerce. And what you said, people would do whatever they could to get the next fix of crack.
Anything.
Including selling themselves.
Did that, like, imagine, like, you was just at this kid's house and you was just, like, serving his mother some crack, right? And this was, like, maybe Christmas, right? 2 days after Christmas, she at you with the same PlayStation she just bought him trying to sell it. Like, what are you going to tell him when he wake up, right? But they don't concern themselves with that because they want what they want so bad.
You're going to take the PlayStation and give him the next hit of crack.
Right.
You have, we had a big war on drugs that came out in President Reagan's years in the administration because we had to do something. It was getting so out of control in this country that there had to be something done. And what was done was more of the enforcement and eradication of the drug dealers than it was to help the people get anywhere what they need to get. Because the crime was just literally out of control. You had at one point 1 in 5 black males from age 20 to 29 were either incarcerated or on probation or parole by 1989. 1 in 5.
Right.
That's a huge number. And this was all due to like this crack epidemic and the crime wave that took place because of it.
Right.
And you grew up in that era.
Right. I'm a product of it. So even that, you think about my criminal record, right? Which sounds a lot crazier than what it really is, but 5 felony convictions, 8 misdemeanor convictions. All 5 felony convictions are from raids. I don't have
drug related.
Right. Let's just say for whatever reason they was to say, well, this class of crime is no longer considered criminal, or you can have this girl for your. I would literally, had I not been inside of crack houses trying to get money from ill-gotten gains from ways that I was taught, I wouldn't even have a criminal record.
But let me make a question, because what should have been done? Should we just let it go?
I think that because of how unsuspecting the community was when it dropped on us, there should have been some level of understanding about where we was left at once our leaders have been taken out of the leadership role and became fiends.
When you say it was dropped on us,
you can't really say because that's crazy. I'm sitting here explaining to you, our leaders were taken out of their leadership role. So where do we go once our leaders are taken out of their leadership role? There is no but behind that.
But you have to look, you said when it was dropped on us, at some point in time, you got to take some responsibility, because just because something's dropped on you doesn't mean you got to. What
I'll do is I'll give credit. I'll say the CIA's plan was probably more effective than they even thought it was. There's no credit to be.
I'm not going to buy that argument. I'm sorry.
There's not really anything to buy. I'm not selling anything except the truth here. I'm just giving you the truth. Anybody could look it up. The CIA. All I typed in the Google right here on this computer was the CIA's involvement in crack cocaine in the black community. You should see what came up. And this is like government websites. It's like
there's all conspiracy
they end with .gov. These things end with .gov. If they're lying, .gov's doing it.
So you think that the government is doing all these programs to help the minority community as of guilt because of the stuff that went on?
I don't think they're helping the black minority community. What do you mean? Like, what programs? What are you talking about? They're helping us out.
Oh, with the funding for colleges, for all the financial assistance that's given, the school there's tons and tons of grants.
Well, this financial forgiveness that they're doing with colleges, that affects so many more whites than it does blacks. As you said yourself, like the amount of blacks that go to college doesn't amount to what it is that they're doing. That big. If it was just only affecting blacks, I would say that, right? But he's doing like college forgiveness, and that's like that's a blanket thing that covers everything. That doesn't do anything for just us, and it doesn't do anything really for us, because you said we play the smallest part in that whole college education part anyway. So
but the opportunities are there, and I don't not believe they're being taken advantage of. And what you said, this was thrown in our communities. At some point, you got to have some responsibility for like what you yourself as a person do. Look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to become a crackhead. I'm not going to have my brother do this crackhead stuff.
I think what you're saying is 100% accurate, because even I had to stand up and be like, yo, I'm not doing this no more, right? Like, I don't care how rough it get or what it is I have to learn in order not to have to do this no more. I won't do this no more. And I think that's a scary thing that I did, and a lot of people are not equipped to do that.
We'll be back at this, but you had, at some point in time, as that drug dealer in the minority community, you have to realize, I'm committing a crime every day. I'm committing a crime every day, whether I like the fact that the law's there or not, but I'm out selling crack cocaine to whoever I'm selling it to for my own personal gain. You act like these people had leadership. This is Street Legal. We are here every Thursday night, 6 p.m., 103.9 LI News Radio. This is Bob Macedonia.
We're going to have a caller when we get back, too, man. We're going to see how this crack really hit the neighborhood, man.
Like I said, Bob Macedonia, Macedonia Duncan is my firm name, 582-3232, and you want to stay free.
You got to call B.O.B.
We'll be back in a few short seconds. Street Legal. We are back here. This is Bob Macedonio, 103.9 LI News Radio. We're here every Thursday, 6 p.m. My firm name, Macedonio and Duncan, 582-3232. Call for any of your legal needs. So, Link, what did we pick up? What did we just leave off?
All right. In case they didn't hear us before we left, I want to say first, if you want to stay free, call BOB 631-582-3232. Second of all, I want to say that we have a caller because, like, it doesn't matter. The CIA could stand in front of you right now and it seems like they could be like, hey, Bob, seriously, he's right. We did all this to the black community. You'd be like, nah,
but
I don't want to believe
listen,
it.
Whether they did it or didn't do it to the black community, at some point in time, the black community has to take responsibility for their own actions.
You're talking about the biggest government organization, the most powerful government organization in the world. Take responsibility for what? How do you beat the strongest federal organization in the entire world? Countries have fallen victim to the CIA. Countries. What do you think a neighborhood could do, bro?
Nobody knocked on your door and handed you packages.
Yes,
and
they did.
Go sell this.
Yes, they did. I swear to God, they did. That's on God. That's on God. That's crazy. Use that as an example.
It wasn't the CIA that knocked on your door and say, "Go sell this."
CIA sent them. CIA sent them. So anyway, we got a caller, man. I really want to take this call because I think that my point of view may not be enough. Let's go.
We have a caller on line 1. Put it through, please. Yes, this is Street Legal. You're here live.
Hello. I'm a 20-year-old artist. I make music. I'm from Long Island.
How you doing, man? How you doing? Thank you for calling us.
Well, 20-year-old. So you're well past the crack epidemic age, and hopefully, you didn't have any relatives or family that were involved in any of that. But what can we do tonight?
Actually, my mother was addicted very, very, very strongly to the point where I wasn't allowed to grow up with her in my life. I couldn't go to my mom, my actual birth mother, and ask her for anything because she was strung out. Her mind was gone.
Wow.
So, sorry to hear that. Is your mom still alive today?
Yes, she is.
Is she in recovery of any kind?
How's she doing?
Yes. She's doing better now, but her mind is not the same as I would have known 20 years ago when I was born, and if I would have grew up with a normal mother.
So that's the studies.
Who raised you?
Studies have found that crack addiction leads to depression, schizophrenia, and just a whole different other medical complications that come from that.
What household did you grow up in, if not with your mom?
I had to grow up with a relative, my mom's aunt, actually, which would be my great aunt.
Right.
I had to grow up calling her my mother because she was the only thing I could call my mother. You know what I mean? And I didn't have a father role either. My father, he took off because of what my mother was doing in her days.
Right. So you're saying you're 20 years old. So up until 20 years ago, the crack epidemic was still affecting what was going on inside minority neighborhoods. You can attest to that as like you basically live in proof, like for lack of a better word, no pun intended. But you live in proof of that though.
So you saw firsthand the devastation effects that this had on the community.
Yeah, it's the devastation I've seen is remarkable compared to what you guys are saying. It's worse now in my eyes. It's not. It hasn't gotten better at all. Our community is falling apart. Still to this day, I don't speak normally with my mother, my family at all because of the separation I had with my mother at birth. I don't know my family because of that. So
as a 20-year-old, what have you seen in the black community from leadership, like of leadership? What would you say leadership looks like in your community?
Leadership would be the next old head who's been through a little bit more than what I've been through, and them telling their story, but they stuck right where I'm stuck.
Next old head.
You said the next old head. I'm maybe a little naive here. What's the next old head?
Next old head would be like somebody who would be at least 10 years older than you. That would be considered an old head. So if they got you by a decade, that's an old head.
Okay.
So they instead of saying the elders, they call you old head and like really insult you and then ask you for advice.
All right. There's no dispute. There's no doubt that the minority communities have been devastated by the drug.
Yeah. So what's going on? Is the caller still on the line? You still on the line?
Yes.
All right. So let's just walk us through what's going on with you now. Like, this guy loves a happy ending, regardless of how much devastation you went through. So just give us a happy ending if you could.
Now I'm actually a performer under the No Days Off rapping label.
Okay.
I'm a very well trained artist in both rapping and keeping myself and my energy protected at all times.
And I commend you for that. But what my whole answer is to this, why are there not more people? Everybody just likes to make the excuse in the communities of blaming the government for not getting out from under the rope. Why do not more people like yourself rise above it, get out of it, look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to be the guy out in the street corner selling drugs.
Why is the government putting the rope?
I'm not going to be the one, robbing, stealing,
Our government should not be
shooting.
doing that to us.
Yeah,
our government should not be doing that. We should not have to get out from anything that our government is doing to us. I think that we should have the same.
It seems like there's no self-responsibility. There's never like a self-awareness that you.
No, you all right. Put it this way.
They blame the government for everything. The minority community seems to blame the government for all problems.
I do. And let's think about all the things that I made it through. Right, I made it through all the things we talking about. Right, and I'm out on the other end of it now. Right, the no crime, the home ownership, the like enjoying what I'm doing for the businesses I opened, all of that. And I'm still telling you, all those things existed, regardless to how I came out of it. They still existed. So it's not like I'm not taking accountability for what it is that I think I could do to pull myself out of it. What I'm telling you is the government should not be putting us in that position, should not have put us in that position, and should not be continuing to do things to destabilize our community. That's the point that I'm making.
Yeah, but I think there's got to be a more sense of self-responsibility and self-awareness on what you need to do to get out of there. It's been a long enough time, and like we had other shows. Some people like to still blame slavery 200 years ago for being oppressed.
Right.
We've come way past that. There has to be.
That's not. We've come past the obvious points that they used to do. We've gotten past what was able to be seen visually, right? But honestly, the institutions haven't changed anything because they still close you out. Like you have to be exceedingly great at something in order to get into the same institutions that somebody who looked like you would just be allowed in.
That's not true. It's the other way around.
No, because you know what it is? That's like a white topic. I say, the blacks have more advantages because this 8% has to be made up by blacks, so they automatically get a shoe-in. 8% of anything sucks, bro. Like, I don't care about these shoe-ins that they got for these black programs. You have to have this percentage of black people to participate. It's such a small percentage that there's nothing for white people to get mad at. If you still own 82% of something and you're making 8% available or 92% of something, making 8% available for blacks, and that's dinner table conversation like, well, the blacks just get in anyway, regardless to what. Meanwhile, there's only a 8% window open for them to ever fill that gap.
No,
that's got to count.
The window's open for everybody.
That's not true.
The window's open for everybody.
That's not true. I don't even know what America this is you're watching. The America I watch is you have to be exceedingly great at something in order to be allowed into it, 1. 2, they will take somebody who is a surgeon, a literal surgeon, and put this guy as HUD. He's head of housing. What in the hell would this guy know about housing? And why just to have a black person in your cabinet? And there's no offense to Trump, because it's got to be somebody who helped to make this cabinet up, right? The face of the cabinet. Why would you put a surgeon, a literal brain surgeon? This guy's
because the guy grew up in public housing. Look at his history.
He's been out of it for too long. He's a surgeon.
It don't matter. That's his history. Right. But he's been. So you're
telling me
that's still in public
you're
housing?
telling me that if slavery happened 2 years ago, then it don't matter now. But if this guy was homeless or in public housing 300 years ago, how old this guy is? This turtle dinosaur completely disconnected from my neighborhood.
I have a lot of love for minority communities, but we got to stop making excuses. People got to start taking responsibility.
No excuses here. What we're doing is we laying the groundwork for why it looks the way that it looks right now. That's it. Now, you want to get into solutions? Because I think we got a few minutes left. We
have a short time left, but we're going to get to that next show. But we have to stop making excuses and take responsibility for our actions. It's instead of looking for the quick fix, the quick dollar, the quick.
It's not we. The black community is not a we, because no one stands with us. The Hispanic community does not stand with us. The white community does not stand with us. There is no community that stands with the black community, and we don't have unity amongst ourselves. So there's no we. There's not even a we when I'm talking about the black community. It's not even really a we.
I think we're way past all that.
Black community. I was told to get it how I live.
That's it.
Find a way to make it. I was never offered any great scholarships or anything for great things that I could do. I could do amazing. I have amazing talents. There's so many things that I could do. I never was acknowledged.
No one's going to take the time to help you cultivate those, because everyone's so focused on trying to survive.
We had talked about it in the previous shows. We had a lack of mentors and a lack of
leaders,
role leaders, and
even teachers right now, they begging. What's that? New York State. I think they begging people in New York State to rent out rooms to teachers because it's become so expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
this is Street Legal. We are here. We're here every Thursday, 6 p.m., 103.9 LI News Radio. This is Bob Mastonio. My firm name, Mastonio and Duncan, 126 Carlton Avenue, Islip Terrace, 582-3232. And remember, you want to stay free or get free,
call B.O.B.
We'll be back next week. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody. We'll see you next week.
Hey.